Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With your 2025 NXT Deadline Instant Analysis. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and it is Saturday night, just minutes after NXT Deadline concluded from San Antonio, Texas. We are here to break down everything that happened on the 5-match card, the final premium live event of 2025 for WWE, a show that seemed to kick off a variety of major storylines for NXT moving into 2026, not just New Year's Evil, but all the way to Stand and Deliver. We have a lot to discuss on tonight's show, including the value of the Iron Survivor Challenge matches and whether, despite a couple bangers on the show, let's do a little spoiler alert here off the top, whether they should actually be contested in early December to end the year. That's just a little tease. Like I said, we'll talk about it later. Off the top here, allow the Silver King to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. And on Twitter, you can vote in pre- and post-show polls surrounding premium live events. Your grades will be factored into the final segment on this instant analysis. When you subscribe to us on YouTube, again at Getting Overcast, you get full-length audio episodes and full-length video interviews. So make sure you follow and subscribe to us across the board at Getting Overcast. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into the 2025 NXT Deadline Instant Analysis. Now, ahead of Deadline, WWE made 2 key announcements involving NXT talent on SmackDown just 24 hours earlier. The first was that the winner of the NXT Championship match would fight Cody Rhodes on Saturday night's main event, featuring John Cena's last match. The second was that Bayley would fight Sol Ruca on the same show, regardless of the outcome of the Women's Iron Survivor Challenge, which to me basically gave away the fact that Sol wasn't going to win. Because if you're already going to platform someone by winning Iron Survivor, are you really going to do that by putting them on John Cena's last match show as well? You don't need to give the same person both rubs, is really what I'm trying to get across. When it comes to the men's stipulation, match setup, whatever you want to call it, to me, it seemed on the surface like even more reason to believe in Ricky Saints retaining the title. Obviously, Ricky is Cody's boy, and it just made a lot of sense to possibly go Cody and Ricky, someone Cody could beat easily and no one would think twice about it, as opposed to doing Cody and Obafemi, where then all of a sudden you're like, wait, are you really going to beat Obafemi in his main roster debut? But also, that is the type of guy you want on a show that features John Cena's final match. Point is, it added a couple interesting non-kayfabe considerations when it came to NXT Deadline on Saturday night. So let's kick this off in a rarity where the show began, because the NXT Championship opened Deadline. Ricky Saints defending against Obafemi, and I always forget to mention this before I begin the match breakdowns, but for anyone who's listening to this instant analysis for the first time, we go through every single match on the card. We tell you what happened. We give you some analysis, a grade, and also our expectations of what might happen in the feud or in the future involving the superstars who were part of the contest. So like I said, this opened the show, and it was mentioned multiple times that it was the first time in NXT history that the men's championship was the first match. Femi looked like an absolute monster during his entrance. Saints landed old school. Femi press dropped him in response before flexing his strength with a variety of body blows and powerful offense moves. Saints went back to old school, but instead hit a tightrope hurricanrana and a spear. Perfect camera angle to the ladder move. They made it look so great despite the size differential between these guys. Ricky countered a discus lariat attempt with a cutter, locked in a guillotine. Oba powered out. Femi broke a count at 8, immediately eating a famouser as he re-entered the ring. They had a solid counter sequence ending with a gutbuster by Oba. Ricky dodged him into the post, only to get his soul chopped out of his chest on the ring apron. Saints then dodged Femi into the steel steps, following with a tornado DDT off the guardrail into the base and another back inside for a false finish. Oba slid out of Rochambeau, countering with fall from grace for a 2.9. Saints ran back at him for one last gasp, but Femi landed a pop-up last ride style Batista bomb version of fall from grace to regain the championship. And they shook hands after the bell. Extremely solid 20-minute match. Definitely entered and stuck in fourth gear for a bit, but the finish to me did not reach a crescendo like you want when you do a title change. I would have loved to have seen Saints avoid the second fall from grace, them wrestle for another 90 seconds, and then eat it when we least expected it. But the version of that fall from grace that Femi delivered was awesome. The last ride Batista bomb, that should be his like ender of, any match against a major opponent or when he's winning a title. That's the extra gear. Fall from grace on its own can win most matches, but you want that Batista bomb last ride style one to be like the mega finisher. The match built nicely. Oba got to flash dominance. Ricky was able to show he was smart and cunning with his game plan. It was a more even bout than I ultimately expected, just given the vast size differential. I felt commentary could have told the story of Saint's experience, aiding him as the match got into deeper waters, especially when you consider that Femi's a neophyte. 4 stars, A-. The camera work, though, was A+. One of the best shot WWE matches in quite some time, better than everything on Survivor Series War Games. As far as the title change, I'm not sure what Ricky's reign ultimately accomplished unless Oba legitimately needed a month off for personal reasons. This is the second time that NXT has given Saints a title reign and a singles championship for 2 months, only to have him drop it rather unceremoniously to someone who was already champion, I believe. I could be wrong. I think Saints dropped the North American title to Ethan Page. I want to say he was North American champion before that. And then here he dropped it to Femi, who was immediately champion before Saints. Now, perhaps this was just Ricky checking off accomplishments on his way to a main roster call-up on or before the Royal Rumble. That's possible. But he only defended the title twice, both times against Trick Williams. So he was barely even an established champion. There's so many questions that come with Femi getting strapped up again. Primarily, is there any chance WWE puts him over Cody Rhodes next Saturday? I'd say there's a 5% chance at best. If you allow Drew McIntyre interference, then I think you're moving up to 20 to 25%. I do expect that match to be hotly contested. Drew could also lead to a no contest or disqualification, which would give them an out. A subsection of fans will lose their frickin' minds if Oba loses clean to the top face on the WWE roster. So just get ready for that possibility. The other major question is whether WWE pulls the trigger with Javon Evans taking the title off Oba, whether at New Year's Evil, if he was to win the main event, the Iron Survivor Challenge for the men, or at Stand and Deliver, as I've been predicting since this summer. My mindset exiting this match was unchanged. Evans should not contend against Femi again until he's going to beat him, meaning no more one-on-one matches, no more triple threat, fatal four-way matches. Evans and Femi should not lock up again until Javon is going to win the NXT championship. And considering I believed that should not happen on a TV special, which New Year's Evil is going to be, to me, that meant he should not win the Iron Survivor Challenge. Later backstage, Ricky was in his own head, feeling sorry for himself. Javon Evans continued gassing him up, saying Saints would definitely get the strap back sooner than later because he is absolute. Then Evans said he would win Iron Survivor, but he wouldn't wait until New Year's Evil, which didn't make any sense unless they were going to run a title match after a 25-minute main event or put it on TV, but not a TV special. They're just going to do it next week or the week after. I was a bit confused at how and why he said that. And then I thought to myself, man, that would be some really weird booking if they did a number one contendership for a TV special and either ran the match at the end of this show, which I really didn't think was going to happen, or if they possibly ran it next week or the week after that. I think NXT is doing a double taping on December 16th and then another taping on December 17th. So they're not going to have live shows for the final 3 weeks, I believe, of 2025 with New Year's Evil, the first live show of 2026. Let's move to the Men's Iron Survivor Challenge. Javon Evans, Leon Slater, Joe Hendry, Miles Bourne, and Dion Lennox all contending. Reminder, when it comes to these matches, they are timed 25-minute matches. They cannot go longer than that. So every entrant comes in basically at a 5-minute interval. The last one only wrestles 10 minutes, needing to achieve whatever fall total the first two guys had 25 minutes to achieve. Every person taking a fall results in 90 seconds inside the penalty box. Bourne backstage went over the positives and negatives of his advantage, ultimately deciding he was going to come out third. There was a tremendous sit-down interview with Lennox that showed exactly why Shawn Michaels decided to kind of pull him out of Dark State as the singles wrestler and put him in this match. He also had a backstage segment with Oba that seemed to foreshadow Dion either winning Iron Survivor or contending for the title soon after that. My hope was that Lennox would not win the match simply because they would have retroactively spoiled it by hammering us over the head with all of their issues for the last 2 weeks. I went into the match still holding Hendry as my prediction. This was indeed the main event of the show. Javon and Leon started. They had a couple fun moments with Evans surprising with a fall at the buzzer as Bourne entered. They did the vertical suplex spot over the ropes. Bourne hit a tope con hero chaser. Never seen him do a move like that before. Lennox entered after that. He hit a doomsday device on Slater with Bourne's help before pinning Evans with a twisting power slam. That landed like a thud from the crowd. Javon shot out of the penalty box like a cannon, but couldn't land a fall as Hendry went on his own run upon entering. Hendry eventually avoided Bourne again, landing a fireman's carry slam to get a fall. Lennox played possum, booting the penalty box door into Bourne as he exited. Javon then caught Joe with a coast-to-coast swanton bomb that landed maybe 10%. He really needs to stop doing this move. It does not hit. It doesn't look good. And it's not a swanton bomb because he's not landing with his, shoulders. He's landing with his feet. So really, if you think about it, he's doing a midair flip, which means if he was to come down on the person in the corner, his feet would like graze their face, as opposed to doing a regular coast-to-coast in which you're basically doing a missile drop kick and taking off someone's head. That's a way more impressive move. Him hitting that clean is way more impressive than doing a swanton or a flip over cannonball, whatever you want to call it, out of the corner. It just doesn't work as well. Is it impressive athletically that he can jump that far and turn his body? Yes, it is. As a wrestling move, it sucks. Sorry. Love Javon Evans. My favorite dude in NXT pretty much. Stop doing that move. Please and thank you. Anyway, Leon knocked him out of the ring. Javon, after he landed that, hit a swanton 450. Then Bourne again took out Lennox with both of them earning a fall. And suddenly everyone was tied at one with less than 4 minutes remaining. Lennox destroyed an injured Hendry in the pod, but Joe ultimately got some revenge and exited. Evans hit an awesome standing cutter on Slater as Lennox exited the pod with 135 seconds remaining in the match, and everyone was still tied at one. Dion threw Javon into a referee, pushing them both into the penalty box and locking the door with no one else apparently in the entire organization able to get this door open. Hendry landed standing ovation on Lennox as Evans climbed out of the box for a splash to seemingly eliminate him from the match. Slater hit his tope over the ring post on Javon, only to eat a cutter and an avalanche cutter for a broken fall with 45 seconds left. Bourne again off the middle rope led to a broken fall. Slater took advantage with a deep swanton 450 on Evans. That was only for Hendry to pick him up. Both guys to fly outside of the ring together. Bourne outside threw Lennox over the announce table into Booker T, who got absolutely wiped out. And clearly one of the things they were establishing in this match was a feud between Bourne and Lennox. He tried to take advantage with the cover, Bourne did, but Evans caught him for a perfect small cradle and the 1-2-3 with, I believe, as many seconds left. He celebrated for a moment, then he calmed down, shook everyone's hand one by one, except for Dion, who dissed him by rolling out of the ring. Now, the consequence of the men main eventing over the women is that the night's best match didn't go on last. This was another paradigm of the women's division clearing the men, and even worse is that NXT booked the women's match to be more exciting apples to apples. Like, it's one thing for the match to be better. It's another for it to be booked better. Now, don't get it twisted. This was enjoyable. The last 90 seconds were straight fire. The final 3 minutes were great. However, the setup and final fall were extremely similar to what the women did, which you'll hear about in a moment. A 5-way tie, the last fall happening inside the final 5 seconds. I mean, are the producers not speaking to each other? How are you going to do, by the way, 11 falls in the women's match and then 6 in the men's match, with fewer in the main event. And by the way, I know I'm getting ahead of myself here. How are there 17 falls in 2 matches where you can register a fall via pinfall, submission, or disqualification, and all of them were pins? You have 17 falls, no submissions. Anyway, back to the men's match. I've explained multiple times why Javon was not the right winner, and it leads me into a serious concern I have about Iron Survivor that, again, I'm going to tease. I'll address at the end of the show in the grade segment. Evans should obviously be NXT champion in 2026 sooner than later. But I just cannot see strapping him up in 4 weeks on a TV special coming out of 3 tape shows. And if he doesn't win that match, then he's going to fall to 0-10-1 or 0-9-2 in title matches since joining WWE, not counting Speed. This will also be his 3rd NXT championship match and his 2nd one-on-one with Femi. So on the surface, Javon winning is great. It's a feather in his cap. It's an accomplishment on his resume. If he winds up taking the title, for me, it's going to feel rushed at a much lower stage than he deserves. If he fails to win the match, then giving him the contendership was a complete waste. But there's more to this. So let's get into the post-match. Actually, you know what? I have to grade this. I'm between 4 stars and 4.25 stars, A- to A. I'll make a final call on the rewatch when we do a second look at NXT Deadline on Thursday. I got some messages. Some people thought it was the best match of the entire night. Maybe I was in my head a little bit. Maybe when I rewatch it, I'll feel the same way. I doubt it, but hey, great adjustments have happened in the past. Anyway, that will be on Thursday. So Oba entered at the end of the show. He stood atop the stage, kind of staring at Javon pretty deep, the whole ramp between them. Suddenly the lights go out and a blurry figure in a heavy coat starts walking across a bridge. And when it's a bridge, you know exactly who it is. That person then emerged from the shadows into the ring, and it was Tony D'Angelo appearing, trying to look like Bane. Javon tried to shake his hand. D'Angelo instead dropped Evans with a spinebuster and flung those random pieces of black fabric on his body. Then he stared down Femi from distance as NXT Deadline went off the air. So another bottom third fake out to end a show. Now, this is NXT, not the main roster, so I'll give it an allowance, but this is like the 4th in the last 3 weeks of WWE TV, something like that. Let's first discuss how Femi has not 1, not 2, but now 3 title challengers coming out of this show. Evans earned it through Iron Survivor. Lennox has done 3 segments, putting Femi's name in his mouth over the last 2 weeks. And D'Angelo returned specifically eyeing the ruler, which harkens back to Tony being the first person to pin Oba for the North American Championship, but in general, 14 months ago in NXT. So if you have a brand new champion with 3 challengers coming out of a premium live event, are you really flipping that title in 4 weeks on a TV special coming out of 3 taped shows? Would not make a shred of sense. So then you think, why did Javon Evans win the Iron Survivor Challenge again? We'll talk about that later. My expectation here is that D'Angelo and or Lennox interfere in that match. That creates a 4-way on TV leading to Femi against D'Angelo at Vengeance Day. Lennox bubbles up as a challenger in between on TV. And Evans still gets his match at Stand and Deliver, ultimately wins the title, which is the exact stage on which he should be platformed. WrestleMania weekend. Fans will be angry Javon loses January 5th or 6th, whatever day that is. Hopefully WWE sees it through and rewards them by strapping him up, in April. After all, WrestleMania, it's only 4.5 months away. It's not that long. So you can have him lose and still win in short order. Now, as far as the D'Angelo return, meh. If I was grading it, a C. The crowd felt the same way, landed like a wet fart, bunch of shrugs. Now, my guess is the fans literally could not see him in the ring. It was so dark that I, as a viewer at home watching on an HD television, I took a minute to figure out who. Oh, yeah, that's D'Angelo. That's who I thought it was. But you couldn't tell right away. He looked great, but the lone tease of his return was some pieces of black fabric in a box, and it was paid off 4 days later with more pieces of black fabric. Now, I'm sure it's the hat that he used to wear all cut up and torn up, but how did the return not play into the way he was written off in the restaurant? Are we going to get a follow-up on that? I know there's going to be a lot of conversation about, D'Angelo should be on the main roster. Why is he back in NXT? I don't necessarily disagree, but NXT needs male singles talent that still has stuff to accomplish. And he can be a main event title contender. It's dudes like Trick and now Ricky that need to move on because all of their boxes are checked. Also, the CW needs stars. You can't take people off NXT like you used to. It needs to be a viable television product for WWE. This is legitimately growing back into a third brand like NXT Black and Gold was for a period of time. So I understand why he's back. Fingers crossed it's not that long, maybe 6 more months, something like that. I'm also interested in seeing him as a character, and this could be another reason, by the way, that he's back, seeing him as a character that can actually translate to the main roster, because the old Mafia Don was not going to. Now, how do they play that? What story does he tell? Again, it's going to be incumbent upon WWE to do that, and that should all come on Tuesday. So we're going to put a pin in the Iron Survivor Challenge talk, at least in terms of the overall event. We're going to move to the second match on the card with the women. Sol Ruca, Lola Vice, Jordan Grace, Kalani Jordan, and Kendall Gray. But before we really break that down, the Silver King does need to remind you that whether it's a premium live event that's airing on Peacock or Netflix or Raw, SmackDown, NXT regularly, weekly on Netflix, the Silver King is now all in with NordVPN. It is easy to set up. It's a drastically better viewing experience. You get high quality streams and commercial free shows. There was so much extra content on NXT Deadline Saturday night that most people who watched it on Peacock missed because they had commercials. All you have to do is sign up at nordvpn.com/gettingover, open the app, quick connect to another country like Canada, open Netflix and watch the show. That's it. It's going to be crucial for WWE, PLE's Saturday night's main event, even John Cena's last match. You can watch it on Peacock with commercials, or you can watch it on YouTube commercial free. NordVPN also allows you to get around online censorship, surveillance, protect your private data when web browsing, and avoid online threats. Plus, you can use one NordVPN account on 10 different devices. So get the best discount from NordVPN with us. Go to nordvpn.com/gettingover. Our link gives you 4 extra free months off the 2-year plan. You can also find it in every single episode description of the show. There's also no risk. Nord has a 30-day money-back guarantee. So improve your WWE viewing, save money, browse safer online, and get the best discount for the best VPN at nordvpn.com/gettingover. We greatly appreciate NordVPN being the official singular sponsor of your boys right here at the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. As promised, let's get right back to the Iron Survivor Challenge with the women. I already named all the competitors in the match. Zaruka FaceTimed backstage. Sol apologized to Zarya, who reciprocated the sentiment, but said she didn't show up to Deadline because she wanted to give Sol space. Ruka also apologized for the Saturday night's main event booking and her not knowing about the announcement before it happened on television. Generally, you do a segment like this if there's going to be an interference or an immediate turn the following week on TV. So my interest suddenly was piqued for this match and for what might be happening this week on NXT. So the Women's Iron Survivor was second on the card after the NXT Championship. That was not surprising, but nevertheless disappointing. Lonnie and Kendall opened. Gray caught the former TNA champion with a power slam for the first fall. Grace entered, tore her apart with a great wrenching submission hold. Lonnie exited the box, got revenge on Kendall, ending an extended counter sequence with a leg trap pinfall. Lonnie took out Grace with a slingshot tornado ringside, knee to the face. Lola immediately hit Kendall with a back fist to grab a fall upon entering fourth. The crowd literally yelled, "I'm a Latina" on the hip attack, which popped me, right? Upon exiting the box, Gray caught Grace in another trap pinning combination to take the lead on Lonnie and Lola. Lonnie ate a perfect full release avalanche German suplex from Kendall. Production missed Grace booting open the door into Lonnie before she went on a hot run, including a stretch muffler suplex on Vice. She rolled through a flying crossbody, pinning Lonnie right as Sol entered, with Grace still leading the field by 1 fall. Lonnie did her best heel work, delaying going to the box. That way she could destroy Ruka's knee on the apron and into the steel steps. Sol limped to the back with trainers. Lonnie grinned. The fans went silent. Lonnie prevented an attempted 5-knuckle shuffle by Grace that drew great heat. Strange spot with the faces swinging Lonnie, who then just landed on her feet and did a double Pele kick, followed by a 6 spot with Lonnie hitting a Spanish fly off the apron ringside on Grace. Ruka returned, booting Lonnie in the face, hitting a double Soul Snatcher for consecutive pins on Lonnie and Lola to quickly move into a tie for the lead with Kendall at 2. 6 minutes left as they fought into the penalty box for 90 seconds, which played picture in picture. That was a nice touch. Ruka did an unnecessary flip into a dragon sleeper before hitting a slingshot X Factor on Vice. Kendall landed Shades of Grey on Grace, with Lonnie late breaking it up. The referee pulled up his arm, which sucked, but was barely noticed. Lonnie landed that move, though, moving into a 3-way tie with Kendall and Soul. Grace was in the box, down 1, just like Vice. Soul did her step-off moonsault ringside, only to eat a springboard moonsault from Lonnie. She did almost an inverted attitude adjustment on Lola as Grace exited for a German suplex blockbuster combination. Then she grabbed Lonnie for a rack bomb. Vice booted Gray's head off, creating a 5-way tie with 2 minutes remaining. Lonnie and Kendall were in the box for half of it. Ruka hit Soul Snatcher on Vice off the steel steps ringside, but struggled to get her inside the ring. So Lonnie booted out her knee and hit a 450 for a broken fall by Grace with 20 seconds left. As they brawled ringside, Gray caught Vice with Shades of Grey flying off the top rope, getting the winning fall with less than 5 seconds remaining. My God, man.
Oh! Yes! I love that!
Talk about strapping the rocket to someone. Active Evolve champion, suddenly appearing weekly on NXT, elevated into an Iron Survivor Challenge winner and #1 contender all inside of a month. Credit where it's due. Did not think this was going to happen. When we did our process of elimination, which we used to pick matches like this on the Ultimate Preview, she was the first one out. I said she's the neophyte. She's the one that's entered the match and getting a quick elevation like Ren Sinclair did last year just to give her a featured spot. She's not going to win. She goes ahead, wins it. This just goes to show Shawn Michaels sees what we all see in terms of Kendall Gray's sky-high potential. This match was an absolute
banger.
Got concerned when they sent Soul backstage because what generally happens to the crowd is that it gets completely taken out of a match, wishing their favorites there, sad that they're not. Bringing Soul back out so quickly, that was perfect. She had plenty of time to flash. It got tremendous heat on Lonnie for the remainder of the match. She played her heel role perfectly. She was the only one in the entire bout playing that side. Grace was the MVP. She was simply phenomenal. You know what? Lonnie was co-MVP, now that I think about it. I'm guessing they're going to continue their feud. Grace needs to win, leveling her back up to Blake Monroe, North American Championship afterward. Maybe they do that at Vengeance Day. They brawled backstage later in the show, by the way. Vice was solid. Unfortunately, she was the most forgettable participant by a mile. When it comes to Ruka, look, at some point, they're going to need to get away from the knee injury deal. I know Seth Rollins is still selling his knee a decade later, but Soul isn't even on the main roster yet, and I feel like half of her career has been selling a knee injury. I'm not sure how much more one could have wanted from this match. Maybe a couple smoother sequences. I do believe a lot of people forget to take experience level into consideration when it comes to NXT. I'm at 4.5 stars, a top-tier finish. It might be the best women's version of this match to date. And don't forget, Silver King reserves the right to adjust his grade on the second look. This is firmly a 4.5A. But there was a part of me that was like, hey, is this like a lower A+? Does this get into that 4.75 territory? It might. I'm going to rewatch this entire show, particularly these Iron Survivor Challenge matches, not taking notes, fresh eyes, just seeing it almost like I am for the first time. And I'll give you a full, formal, official grade. On that second look Thursday, we're talking NXT and a 2-week birth of AEW. Soul got into it with Kendall and Ren Sinclair backstage after the match. She first congratulated Gray, but said that she would have won if she got her full time. Ren pointed out that Zarya speared Kendall on Tuesday, so she had to overcome even greater adversity after almost getting screwed out of being in the match in the first place. That led to Ruka standing up for Zarya and seemingly creating a tag team challenge this Tuesday or on a future NXT. They didn't officially do it, but clearly it's going to go in that direction. And that's where a heel turn could happen in a match with 4 established faces. We'll find out. Solid segment from all three, from a speaking perspective, a character development perspective. I'm glad they did this on the show. Ironically, I said on the Ultimate Preview that the clear favorites in these two matches were Javon and Soul, but I didn't want to take both of the favorites. So I predicted Soul and then Hendry. Meanwhile, the opposite happened. Javon won. And then the least likely of probably the women's participants, Kendall, took this match. But credit to both of these Iron Survivor challenges. They were awesome. Tatum Paxley fought Izzy Dane. Paxley was crying with mascara running down her face during her entrance, doing a tremendous job selling her emotional state before the bell. The Culling men confronted her and they attempted a distraction, but Tatum caught Izzy trying to blindside her, Dame tried to caress her head for a hug at the bell. Tatum stared into her soul instead. Paxley nevertheless relented minutes later, with Dame chucking her into the steel steps as a consequence of her letting down her guard. Izzy landed a pretty cool swing around backbreaker, and the match slowed a bit with Tatum stuck in a deep Boston Crab that really should have been a Texas cloverleaf considering they were in Texas. Dame smacked Paxley across the face out of frustration. That led to a Tatum run of offense, including a standing froggy bow. Izzy landed an anti-air dropkick and a swinging neckbreaker. Tatum answered with a crucifix bomb and a bottom rope flying crossbody that acted as a tope suicida, sending them both outside. Tatum then tore apart the announce table and got Izzy on top for her finisher as Dame pled for mercy. Paxley smiled, murked her right into the table. Cameras missed the look on her face, which was a key moment of the match. I said production was great. It was for 95% of Deadline. They missed this. As Tatum went to cover back inside, Sean Spears presented her with their friendship dolls, only to pull the brunette's head off, that one, of course, being Paxley. Tatum smacked Spears across the face, got inside the ring, ate a boot from Dame, and then game over. Or excuse me, it's Dame over, right? For the defeat. Look, you all know I had a real clear head, and I did not let my emotions get the best of me when Paxley dropped the title to JC Jane. In fact, I loved the booking of that match. I hated this. Not the match, the finish. Tatum looked like an absolute idiot. Now, perhaps if they had not teased the emotional manipulation 4 other times during a 13-minute match, I wouldn't have had as much of a problem with it, and it would have been okay for it to happen in the finish. Instead, Paxley had to make the same decision over and over again. Sometimes she was smart about it. Other times she got in her own head. Now, I'm not saying she's not allowed to be inconsistent as a character. That's totally okay. But she did all that work, overcame all those obstacles, just makes the decision on the announce table. Nah, screw this girl. I'm going to take her out. Does it. And then gets off the table and gets presented with 2 dolls. And she's like, no, this is going to distract me enough to give this woman 60 seconds to recover. That way she can beat me immediately as soon as I get into the ring. I know the dolls are a long-term part of Paxley. She had the friendship dolls with Lyra Valkyria and other people. So I think Solru Kanzari, maybe. I don't remember. But this has been something that's been ongoing with her. So I understand the utilization of them. I'm not calling the dolls being involved in the match stupid. What I'm saying is for this woman who, is selling an emotional angle and doing all this stuff to overcome this, I want to say 3 of the 4 times it was presented to her prior in the match, she overcame, stood up for herself. And then this at the end, oh, the dolls are here. I'm going to get distracted and I'm going to let it continue distracting me. And I'm not going to remember the fact that these dudes, Sean Spears and Nico Vance, whatever the guy's name is, cost me the title. They stood in my way. This is the same thing happening again. Is she really that dumb? That was my problem with the finish. I hope all of you understand the explanation there. So I didn't have an issue with Izzy winning. I still believe Tatum will ultimately take the feud. I presume there will be a stipulation match, maybe steel cage, maybe something involving the dolls. I don't know. It keeps the guys away, allows Tatum to get her big win. But considering Izzy already cost her the title, I'm not sure she needed another moment like this over Tatum. Now, this match between them could come at New Year's Evil, Vengeance Day, 2 fitting names and thematic shows in which to do a rivalry match like this. The wrestling was solid here, bell to bell. The spot on the table was perfection. The storytelling throughout was solid, albeit heavy-handed. Tatum's acting and selling, it was the standout aspect of this segment. She could do some legitimate work on stage or screen. And I'm not saying, Broadway or a Hollywood movie. I'm saying she could act. And you could definitely put her in some situations in which she could be an actress. I think it would actually work for her. I'm at 3.25 stars and a B. The finish dragged this down. I'm also willing to adjust this. It will not, under any circumstances, go above a B+. The ceiling is probably 3.5 and a B. And lastly, the North American Championship, Ethan Page defending against Mr. Iguana. This was obviously the mid-show feature as the weakest match storyline-wise. Iguana literally played dead early. He landed a crossbody with Yeska plus a spinning DDT with Page working aggressively between the comedy sequences. Ethan grabbed Yeska, choked her, spit on her, spiked her over the ropes. That obviously enraged Iguana, who countered an avalanche Ego's Edge with a Hurricanrana off the ropes and a Tope Hurricanrana to follow. Page ultimately pulled Iguana off the ropes and hit a twisted grin to retain the title. Dia de los Muertos, this match was not. This was a TV title defense and a PLE popcorn match, except it occurred in the middle of the show as opposed to right before the main event. There was nothing wrong with it. Both guys did well. There were some entertaining sequences, but I found myself shrugging when it ended. There was no doubt Paige would retain the title here. Now look, NXT, they need to legitimately bubble up some contenders on the back end for the North American Championship. They've kind of run out of people, and it's why Ethan Page is involved in a match like this rather than building a deeper, involved storyline. 3 stars, B-, quote unquote, worst match on the show. It was not bad at all. Just the lowest graded match on the entire show. Booker T on commentary was the MVP of this match. For real. He was hysterical. And if you don't have him and you have like 2 straight-laced dudes calling this, it is way less entertaining. He probably gave this an additional quarter star, just Booker T on his own. Blake Monroe met with Ava backstage, suggesting she begin an open challenge for the North American title, considering that the women in NXT are the deepest division in wrestling. Ava reminded Monroe that she's only champion because Zarya threw in the towel, and an open challenge means anyone can face her. So clearly they're talking about someone coming in from the main roster or TNA or AAA, something like that. It clearly wasn't just another NXT talent. Ava then negatively compared her to Ilya Dragunov and Sami Zayn, but Blake had funny responses for both of those, and Ava ultimately relented. I presume this means that we're going to get a week 1 surprise, like I said, with a WWE, TNA, AAA superstar or wrestler, showing up. And then after that, if they continue doing the North American Open Challenge, perhaps it'll be more people like Thea Hale and such. Nice little segment with Blake again flashing her personality, plus the arrow continues to point up for her. It was disappointing she wasn't on the show in a match, but I'm glad they got her on it in general. And Shiloh Hill did his final download vignette, recalling that he got into football after a coach saw him chase and catch a squirrel. He talked about getting bit by a squirrel and having a tooth in his head after headbutting a kid who was playing a game with his sister, who I think he called Darkness, like his sister's name, Darkness.
What's up, partner? Darkness, everybody. Darkness is spreading.
That's the only reference I could come up with for that. Then we come to find out that all of these downloads were entries he was speaking into a computer system, and that system replied to him saying, quote, "Time for everyone to wake up. Do not sleep on Shiloh Hill. Based on the information provided, it's determined you're ready for your first match on this week's NXT. Okay. Does he have like an AI master or something like that? Is Ava a human stand-in for an AI general manager of NXT? I was immensely confused about this. We've been confused about these vignettes week after week. This made even less sense than the rest of them. So maybe we're going to find out. Like I've said, stranger gimmicks have gotten over in NXT when it looked like they had zero chance previously. So we will allow this obviously to go forward, and we'll judge it on the surface, once we actually see what happens here. But I got to tell you, an inauspicious start for Shiloh Hill, despite the fact that he has a ton of personality and can legitimately go in the ring. So that wraps up everything that happened on NXT Deadline. Let's go into our grade segment here. We'll start with our pre-show expectation grades. I'll cover a couple topics for you, and then we'll do a post-show grade. In the pre-show, the Silver King on the Ultimate Preview, my expectation coming in was a 92 out of 100 in A-, a higher than usual expectation grade for me, largely carried by the fact that there were 2 Iron Survivor Challenge matches and a NXT Championship match I badly wanted to see, plus Izzy and Tatum, a really nice storyline-driven bout. Vote totals from all of you are getting overheads on social media, 53% in the A range, 44% in the B+ to B segment, and 3% in B- to C+. That averaged out to a 92.8 out of 100, a 93, the lowest A in the grading system here in the United States. So all of you had the lowest A, the Silver King had the highest A-. That was the expectation going into the show. Now, there were 2 topics I did want to talk about before I go into the final grade here for NXT Stand and Deliver. One was actually posited as a question by one of our Getting Overhead listeners, Bernardo Figueiredo. I hope I said that right. At BF1GUEIREDO. Of course, that is on Twitter. He said, how many years until Triple H, quote, steals this stipulation for the main roster? And at first, I was going to brush off this question. I was like, haha, very funny, because, he stole War Games. But then I started thinking about it a little bit. And I was like, the key word in Iron Survivor Challenge is Survivor. And this match is everything that Survivor Series and War Games literally is not. This is the match that the WWE main roster should be running twice on Survivor Series. They're 25 minutes each, so you're saving 15 minutes off War Games. That allows you to put one or two more matches on the show, theoretically. It's much more exciting. It's not an elimination match, but there are eliminations where it puts you in the penalty box and gives you a break. You could even expand this. You could easily make this a 6-person match and expand the penalty box to, 2 minutes at a time and have it go 30 minutes as opposed to 25. Like, there's a lot of different ways you could enhance this match. Would it be as perfect? I don't know, because this is an incredible stipulation. But when he said that, I was like, yeah, maybe inside 5 years. Like, it's not impossible. If this continues getting rave reviews like it has been, and there's another issue that goes along with Iron Survivor Challenge, which we'll talk about in a moment, I would not be surprised if it winds up on the main roster. The thing that I believe will ultimately prevent it, or at least stand in the way of it happening soon, because I was being facetious when I said inside of 5 years, is that ultimately the Iron Survivor Challenge crowns the number one contender. And WWE, as we know, already has that with the Royal Rumble. They have it with Elimination Chamber, even though they shouldn't. I've said many times on this show, they need to freshen up the Elimination Chamber concept. I believe it's been at least 2, if not 3 years in a row, where both of the Elimination Chamber matches on that card have been number one contenderships without a title actually on the line in the structure. You need to flip that up. It's okay to do a contendership, but you got to put the title on the line. You cannot have all 4 top challengers at WrestleMania earn their way in through 4 stipulation matches. It really hampers your ability to create, championship matches based on storyline alone. And when you force a storyline into a person winning one of those matches, it really does diminish it, depending on the person, depending on the seriousness of the storyline. But my point is, in those 2 shows, WWE has 4 number one contendership matches. And then they also have 2 Money in the Bank matches. So 3 premium live events on the main roster calendar, all of them usually held, inside the first 7-8 months of the year, are number one contendership stipulations. If you add this and you put it at Survivor Series War Games, which is the final PLE until the Royal Rumble, and they're 2 months apart, then these person get title matches, on Saturday night's main event? For a match of this quality, that seems like a lesser accomplishment or a lesser number one contendership compared to, the main event of WrestleMania potentially. And that actually brings us to the other issue with the Iron Survivor challenges that I wanted to talk about here. It's great that these matches are contested for number one contenderships. It's exactly what it should be. The match format is incredible. They're exciting. Were they a little formulaic this year, both being run pretty much the same way and ending the exact same way? Yes, they were. But they're pretty much perfect. The issue is that the number one contendership you earn out of the Iron Survivor Challenge, which you could argue is the toughest match to win in NXT. You certainly look at the person who wins as having accomplished something significant. You're getting that title match 4 weeks later on a TV special coming out of the holiday season when the product is probably as cold as it is all year. And while they have changed the titles here before, let's think about the winners and the situations coming out of NXT Deadline. We explained already, I won't repeat myself, all the reasons why Javon Evans probably should not win the title at New Year's Evil. Do you believe Kendall Gray is getting elevated 2 months after being on NXT officially into simultaneously being the Evolve Women's Champion and the NXT Women's Champion? I don't. So you're having these 2 incredible matches and you're putting over these 2 winners and you're not really capitalizing on it because they're not getting PLE championship matches. They're not getting WrestleMania weekend championship matches. They're just getting NXT TV special matches that they're probably going to lose. That really does diminish the accomplishment of winning Iron Survivor. And despite this event being great, when you actually contextualize what the number one contenderships they're getting are, you look at it and you say, well, that's not akin to winning a Royal Rumble or an Elimination Chamber. This match, these matches, despite this show being NXT Deadline, and I understand it, I get it, these matches should probably happen at Vengeance Day in February. And the winners should probably get title matches at Stand and Deliver. It makes a lot more sense to do that. Now, they're not going to change it because, again, this is called Iron Survivor Challenge because Survivor, end of year Survivor Series, it's kind of playing off that. Also because the show is named NXT Deadline, and that's, goes in with the time concept and the countdown and the whole deal. And you can't get rid of Vengeance Day. I mean, you could in theory, but it's a great name for a February premium live event. So your options are running Vengeance Day in early February, doing Deadline in early March. That gives you 6 weeks to build up the championship matches to Stand and Deliver. That's what Silver King would do. Put a different premium live event in December, come up with another cool stipulation, do a good show, whatever the case might be. But you either do that or you leave it where it is. And that ultimately is the lone problem that I see with the Iron Survivor Challenge. Is it's an awesome match. It's an awesome accomplishment, but it's probably one of the weaker number one contenderships you can win in NXT. I mean, there are battle royal number one contenderships on TV that create title matches for premium live events. And those get more prestige than this, right? So just think about it that way and understand, the perspective I'm bringing toward this. Now, in terms of a final grade for NXT Deadline, this was a great show. You had 2 A matches pretty much. No matter really where I land, it's going to average out to an A between the Iron Survivor challenges. The NXT Championship I thought was great. It certainly wasn't the level to which I thought it could be. I explained why, that the finish was rather sudden. It didn't build to a crescendo like I expected. The North American Championship match was rather throwaway. And Tatum Izzy was exactly what it needed to be until the finish. So this show delivered really top to bottom, 5 out of 5. And apples to apples, it was far better than Survivor Series War Games. For me, this show is a low A in the 94 to 93 range. I'm going to say a 93 out of 100. It was a little bit better than I expected, not much better than I expected. And it deserves to be considered one of the better WWE premium live events and really one of the best pay-per-views of any, company of the year. It's not going to be in the top 5 or 6, but it's definitely in the upper third, I would say, of all the special events that we've seen in 2025. A great way for WWE to include its calendar when it comes to premium live events. Now, let's see what all of you are getting overheads had to say. There are still 35 minutes left in this poll, so it is possible some of the numbers change after I do the math here, but we are currently sitting at 47% A plus 2A, 43% A minus 2B plus, 6% B to B minus, and 4% C plus or lower. And that 4%, I mean, what are we even doing here? It just doesn't there's no way this was a C plus show. If you're a professional wrestling fan, this was not a C plus show. That averages out to a 93.2. So an A, just like the Silver King said, I think, 4/10 higher than all of your expectation grade, a full point for the Silver King. We pretty much agreed that this show was a bottom level A program and exceeded our expectations coming in. And that is really what you want any show to be. Even if you think a show is going to be a B, if it's a B plus, it's a win. If it's a higher B than you expected, it's a win, meaning they exceeded your expectations and did better than you thought they might, considering any storytelling or match booking that they had on the card. So yeah, a hugely positive end to this breakdown of NXT Deadline. WWE did cap its premium live event season quite well. Of course, next week, though, it's going to be WWE Saturday night's main event, John Cena's last match. And I don't know if they're going to add a 4th match or even a 5th. I don't know if it's going to go past, 2 hours, 15 minutes if they extend it a little bit. But if you're talking about a 3-match card where you're going to have John Cena against Gunther in what is going to be the main event, but may actually open the show, okay? And then you have Cody Rhodes against Oba Femi and Bayley against Sol Ruka. And we're going to talk about these matches and the specifics this week on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Stay tuned for a moment. I'm going to give you our full schedule for next week before this show is over. But if you're telling me those are the 3 main matches on that card, oh boy. I mean, that is speaking the Silver King's language. So I was already excited, obviously, for John Cena's final match, as we all are. But I am way more pumped about this show next Saturday than I thought I could be. And guess what? No college football. So an even greater Saturday where we can fully sit and enjoy what is going to be, or should be at least, a very special moment in professional wrestling. So on the way out, I did just mention next week's schedule. It's possible there are some tweaks to this, but as of right now, this is the plan. We will be back on Tuesday talking all things WWE in our normal weekly show. We will cover everything that happened on Raw and SmackDown, except the storylines involving John Cena. And the reason why we're going to separate that is because on Wednesday, we will have a John Cena retirement special, along with a career retrospective and a retirement retrospective. We're going to look back at the entire year, what WWE did right, what it did wrong. And of course, we'll look at Cena's career and discuss, is he indeed the greatest of all time? If not, where does he place? We will preview WWE Saturday Night's main event, John Cena's last match, Gunther as his opponent, the LA Knight Gunther match from SmackDown, which was an absolute
Banger.
the other matches on the card. We'll do it all on Wednesday. Then on Thursday, we'll be back talking NXT and AEW. We'll have a second look from NXT Deadline. We'll discuss, I believe, the final live TV show of 2025 and 4 episodes, 8 hours of AEW, all covered on Thursday. And then we'll be back Saturday with your Saturday night's main event, Instant Analysis. So coming off of, I think, a 4-episode week, a 3-episode week, we're going to have another 4-episode week right here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. And if you want to show a little bit of appreciation toward the Silver King and vintage Chris Vanini, there's a few different ways you can do it. First, you can remember,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well, because for $5 a month, $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. We would greatly appreciate that financial support. And again, you get extra content too. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. We will read any further NXT Deadline comments, like I said, on Thursday. And you can also vote in pre- and post-show polls surrounding premium live events on YouTube. You can listen to full-length audio episodes and watch full-length video interviews. We have Ethan Page and Natalia from the last couple of months, again, across the board at Getting Overcast. And lastly, please remember,
It's all about the 5.
head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. All right, it's Saturday night. We're going to get this posted before midnight. I appreciate everyone listening. We have a huge end of the year planned for you. 4-episode week upcoming. The 2025 Getting Over Awards, aka the meetings, and your 2025 year in review all across the next few weeks. This is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.